Parental instinct is a combat drug. It does not require training or armor or a badge of office. It requires only a heartbeat to protect and a threat to silence. Sarah hummed a low, vibrating melody, the kind that resonated in her chest and traveled down her arms. To the casual observer, she was merely rocking a child. To a xenobiologist, she was engaging in a high-risk gamble with a predator. Prince Xylos was not a soft, pink thing. He was an heir to the Vraxis throne, a toddler-sized knot of obsidian chitin and retractable spines that dripped with a paralytic neurotoxin when he was distressed. Most of the royal guard wore triple-plated ceramite gauntlets just to hand him a toy. Sarah wore a cotton cardigan. She shifted her weight, ignoring the slight prick of a spine against her forearm. "You're okay, little guy," she whispered. Her voice a wash of Terran empathy that seemed to baffle the alien staff. "I know, teeth coming in. It hurts. I mean, it's just the worst, isn't it?" Xylos looked up at her, his four ocular receptors dilating. The biology of his species was wired for aggression and hierarchy, yet under the influence of this strange mammalian heat, his spines lay flat. His scales shifted from a distressed crimson to a soft, contented lavender. It was a biological response the royal doctors had never documented. The human bond was acting as a natural sedative. The door to the nursery slid open with a hiss of pneumatics. Captain Vrax, 600 pounds of muscle and scarred armor, filled the frame. He looked at the human woman, then at the lethal infant sleeping against her unprotected neck. His mandibles clicked in a rhythm that signified both confusion and disdain. "You remain unarmored, caretaker Sarah," Vrax rumbled, his voice synthesizer struggling with the softness of the vowels. "This is unwise. The prince's venom glands are active during REM cycles." Sarah didn't look up, focused entirely on the temperature of the formula in her hand. She was armed with a bottle warmer, a device Vrax had assumed was some form of primitive grenade. "If I wear the armor, I can't feel if he's feverish," Sarah said, checking the milk on the inside of her wrist. "Besides, the metal cold wakes him up." "Honestly, he's just a baby, Vrax. He knows who's holding him." Vrax shifted his plasma rifle, the heavy weapon humming. "You humans rely too much on intangible variables. Instinct is not a shield. Empathy stops no blades. When the wolves come, soft things die." Sarah just smiled, a small, tired expression. "Adaptation, Captain. We don't survive by being harder than the rock. We survive by being the moss that breaks it." Vrax grunted, a sound of dismissive amusement, and the door slid shut, sealing her back into the dim, warm sanctuary of the nursery. The silence that followed was heavy. It was the deep, pressurized quiet of a royal wing at night. Sarah moved to the preparation station, setting the bottle into the warmer. She watched the light turn from red to green. Then the air pressure changed. It wasn't a sound. It was the feeling of a vacuum, a sudden absence of the ambient hum of the ventilation. Sarah paused. Her ears popped. The heavy thud of a body hitting the floor outside the door vibrated through the soles of her sneakers. It was a wet, heavy sound. However, the rhythmic marching of the corridor guards had stopped. Sarah froze. Her heart rate, previously a slow, comforting drum for the prince, spiked. Terran biology flooded her system with adrenaline, but she didn't run. She didn't scream. She looked at the monitor. Static. The nursery door didn't hiss this time. It was forced open, the lock melting away under a silent thermal cutter. 3 figures slipped into the room. They were clad in stealth suits that drank the light, sleek and predatory. Assassins. They moved with the fluid grace of things designed to kill without warning. They saw the crib. They saw the small, soft human woman standing by the changing table. They saw no guards. They saw an easy kill. The lead assassin raised a suppressed kinetic pistol, aiming it directly at the sleeping prince. Sarah didn't think. She didn't calculate the odds. The culture shock of violence invading this sacred space bypassed her logic centers entirely. The mama bear switch flipped, turning fear into a cold, absolute clarity. She stepped between the gun and the crib. The assassin paused, confused by the sudden obstruction. He gestured with the weapon for her to move, a silent command to step aside and die later. Sarah looked at the gun, then at the assassin's masked face. She held a finger to her lips. "Don't wake the baby," she hissed. The assassin stepped forward, dismissing her as a non-threat. He reached out to shove her aside. Sarah's hand closed around the bottle warmer. It was a heavy, industrial-grade cylinder, currently boiling with superheated water. To the assassin, she was a prey animal displaying submission. To Sarah, the environment was an arsenal. She didn't shove back. She swung. The heated water exploded outward, a sudden searing mist that coated the assassin's optical sensors. The intruder jerked back, his silent movements replaced by a chaotic flailing as the scalding liquid found the gaps in his suit. He wasn't trained for thermal shock from a domestic appliance. He dropped the pistol. Sarah didn't wait to see if he recovered. She was already moving, her movements driven by a frantic, biological imperative that overrode her lack of combat training. She kicked the pistol under the heavy crib, out of reach. The second assassin lunged, a serrated blade sliding from his wrist gauntlet. He was fast, faster than any human, but he was expecting a duel. He was expecting his opponent to block or retreat. Sarah did neither. She grabbed a pressurized canister of icy mist meant for cleaning the delicate nursery sensors. She sprayed it directly into his respiratory vents. The assassin convulsed, the sudden introduction of sub-zero chemicals, sending his cold-blooded physiology into immediate shock. He stiffened, his joints locking up as his metabolism crashed. It was a crude, desperate application of xenobiology, weaponizing a cleaning product against a finely tuned killing machine. The third intruder hesitated. That hesitation was the only opening Sarah needed. She wasn't fighting for territory. She wasn't fighting for a flag. She was fighting for the small, sleeping thing behind her. The human bond had saturated her adrenal system, making her faster, sharper, and utterly terrifying. The intruder raised his weapon, but Sarah had already hefted the heaviest object within reach, a bound, hardcover copy of the royal lineage of Vrax, complete with metal-reinforced corners. She swung the book with both hands. It connected with the side of the assassin's helmet with a dull, sickening thud. The impact sent him stumbling into a pile of plush toys, his equilibrium shattered. The nursery fell silent again, save for the heavy, ragged breathing of the human woman standing in the center of the room. Her cardigan was torn, and there was a shallow cut on her cheek, but she remained standing. When the royal fleet finally breached the blast doors, they came prepared for a massacre. King Xylar himself led the charge, his massive armored form filling the corridor, his forearms wielding energy blades that hummed with lethal intent. Behind him, a dozen elite Praetorians stormed in, ready to avenge their fallen prince. They stopped dead in the doorway. The room was a wreck of overturned furniture and spilled milk. The three assassins were not dead, but they were incapacitated. They had been dragged into a corner and bound tightly with colorful, braided jump ropes. In the center of the room, Sarah sat in the rocking chair. She was trembling slightly, the adrenaline fading into a dull ache, but her arms were steady. Prince Xylos was awake now, cooing softly and chewing on the plastic ring of a pacifier, completely oblivious to the violence that had just occurred. King Xylar stepped forward, his eyes wide with a mixture of horror and confusion. His mandibles open to roar a command, to demand a status report, to unleash the fury of a father who thought he had lost his son. Sarah looked up. She didn't bow. She didn't salute. She simply raised a single, bloodied finger to her lips. "Shh," she whispered, her voice cracking but firm. The king froze. The Praetorians froze. The greatest warrior in the galaxy, a conqueror of 12 systems, stood paralyzed by the command of an unarmed nanny. "He's finally sleeping," Sarah murmured, smoothing the spines on the prince's back. "And if you wake him up, Your Majesty, I'm going to be very upset." Xylar looked at the unconscious assassins, defeated by storybooks and temperature shocks. He looked at the human woman, frail and soft, who had turned the nursery into a fortress. He realized then that the guards had died because they were soldiers doing a job. The human had survived because she was a mother protecting a child. The nanny is the final boss. The king deactivated his energy blades. He signaled his guards to lower their weapons. Then, with the agonizing slowness of a creature trying not to make a sound, the massive alien warlord tipped-toed backward out of the room.